This is a building permit. It was issued by the city of Barcelona on the 7th of June, 2019. It is for a building that began construction in 1882. Read those two dates again. 137 years passed between the first stone and the piece of paper that made the work legal. For all of that time, the most visited monument in Barcelona went up without permission from anyone. That is not quite the same as nobody trying. In 1885, 3 years after the first stone, the builders did apply for a permit. They applied to the municipality of Saint Martí de Provençal, which was the town that the site sat in at the time, and which Barcelona later absorbed. City records show no evidence that the application was ever granted. They also show no evidence it was ever denied. It simply stopped, and the work did not. And here is the part that matters. A building does not rise for 137 years on its own. Stone costs money. Cranes cost money. Stonemasons are paid every month for 137 years. So, somebody was paying. The answer is not faith. It is not the Vatican, and it is not the Spanish state, and it is not a wealthy family. Hold that question for a moment, because the answer is standing in the queue outside. Start with the size of the thing. The Sagrada Família is in its 144th year of construction. It has never in its history been a finished building. Every photograph you have ever seen of it, including the ones you have taken, contains a crane. In 2019, when the permit was finally issued, the basilica was roughly 70% complete, with 8 of a planned 18 towers standing. And in 2025, 4,877,000 people paid to walk inside it. Around 20 million more passed through the streets immediately around it without going in. Think about what that means for a second. This is a construction site. It has scaffolding, hoardings, dust, and a delivery schedule. And almost 5 million people a year buy a ticket to stand inside it while the work continues over their heads. You have seen this building 1,000 times. In films, on postcards, on the phone of someone who just came back from Barcelona, and you have almost certainly never asked the simplest question about it. Who pays the invoice? Here is the answer, and it is on the record. In 2025, the Sagrada Família reported income of 134.5 million euros. 100% of it came from private sources. Not a single euro of public money. 58.4 million of that went directly into construction. Now do the arithmetic, because it is simple, and nobody does it out loud. 134.5 million euros divided by 4,877,000 visitors is about 27 euros and 50 cents a head. That is not a donation. That is a ticket price. Basic entry today is 26 euros. 30 for a guided visit. 36 if you want to go up one of the towers. 40 for the guided visit with a tower. For most of its history, this building depended on public donations. Tourism changed that. Today, the construction is funded almost entirely by admission fees, which means the sentence you should be holding in your head is this one. The ticket is not entry. The ticket is a brick. Now, the permit. The document issued in 2019 states, in its own text, that the works are expected to end in 2026. It is 2026. Come back to that. First, you need to know what the permit cost, because the number is not what you would guess. In October of 2018, the Junta Constructora, the board that has run the construction since the beginning, reached an agreement with Barcelona City Council. The basilica would regularize its situation, and in exchange it would pay. The license itself came to 4.63 million euros. 4.38 million of that was construction tax. 241,732 euros was the license fee proper, but the full price should have been 12 million. The basilica paid a third of that because Barcelona classifies it as a public, non-profit building, and that classification carries a 65% discount. The same document approved a budget of 374 million euros to finish the work, and a maximum height of about 172 meters, which, on approval, made it the tallest building in Barcelona. It is worth being precise about what that agreement did and did not do. It did not punish anyone. There was no court, no ruling, and no finding of wrongdoing. What happened is that a building which had operated outside the municipal system for over a century was brought inside it, by negotiation, and the terms were written down. The city got a document it could point to. The basilica got the legal certainty to keep building. Both sides had an interest in the same outcome, which is usually why long-running problems finally get solved. And then there was the second number, the one that is not a fee at all. 36 million euros paid to the city over 10 years. Not a fine, not back taxes. The agreement describes it as compensation for the impact that the construction and the people who come to see it have on the city around them. So the obvious question is what the city does with 36 million euros. This is where the video stops being about a church. 22 million of it goes to bus services. 7 million goes to new and expanded metro access, running directly to the basilica. The remaining 4 million goes to other works in the surrounding neighborhood. Read that back slowly. 22 million euros of bus service in a European capital, paid for by tourists buying admission tickets to a church. Nobody voted for that. No tax was raised. No line appeared on anyone's council bill. A visitor from Osaka or São Paulo buys a 26 euro ticket, walks in, looks up at the ceiling for 40 minutes, and part of that 26 euros ends up as a bus running down a street they will never walk on. The person who benefits most from your ticket may be someone who has never been inside the building, and you can put a figure on your own share of it. 36 million euros spread over 10 years is 3.6 million euros a year. Divide that by the 4,877,000 people who paid to go in last year, and you get about 74 cents. 74 cents. That is the part of your admission ticket that is not stone, not staff, not restoration, and not the church at all. It is the part that becomes a bus route, a metro entrance, and a resurfaced pavement in a neighborhood you are walking through on your way back to the hotel. You did not choose it. It was not itemized, and it is one of the most direct transfers between a tourist and a city that exists anywhere in Europe, and the machine has a cost that is harder to look at. Finishing the basilica means finishing the glory facade on the southern side. The design requires a monumental staircase and an approach that does not currently exist because there are residential buildings standing where it would go. Around 200 people live in them. The city has been working on relocation. There is no villain in this part of the story. There is a design drawn in the 1880s, meeting a street that filled up with apartments in the century that followed. But it belongs in the accounting, because it is part of what the ticket eventually buys. Now come back to the permit, and to 2026. On the 20th of February this year, The final piece of the cross was lifted onto the Tower of Jesus Christ. That brought the basilica to about 172.5 meters and made it the tallest church in the world. It is the 14th tower of an eventual 18. On the 10th of June, 100 years to the day after Gaudí died, the tower was inaugurated with the Pope present. So, the permit said the works would end in 2026. In 2026, the tallest tower was finished. A pope came, and the world's press wrote that the building was complete. It is not complete. The glory facade is not built. The staircase is not built. 4 of the 18 towers are not built. Serious estimates put the remaining work at another decade at minimum, with some pointing to 2034 or 2035. And from May to December of this year, the basilica added a temporary surcharge of between 2 and 5 euros to the ticket, explicitly to fund the topping out of that tower and the exhibitions around it, which is the whole thesis in one line item. When they needed to finish the tower, they did not open a fundraising appeal. They put it on the ticket. Here is the lens, and then I will leave you alone with it. Every monument you pay to enter is a funding structure wearing a facade. The building is the part you photograph. The turnstile is the part that actually holds it up. Once you have seen that, you cannot stop seeing it. The entrance fee at a cathedral, a palace, a ruin, a national park. It is never just the price of getting in. It is a line in a budget, and that budget pays for things that were never explained to the person handing over the card. The Sagrada Família is only the clearest example, because it is the one where the construction never stopped, so you can watch the money turn into stone in real time. If you are going to Barcelona, book the entry with a tower, not because of the view, though the view is the point of the price difference. Book it because you will be standing inside the answer to the question this video opened with, and because now you know exactly which part of your ticket is holding the roof up. Next time, Venice. The entry fee does not cover the maintenance of the city. So, who does?